Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is episode 49 of High Street Sports. A little inside baseball. This is our third take at this, but here we go. We press on anyways. As I mentioned in the previous two intros, the best time of the year is here for most sports fans. This is March Madness. This is a time where, exactly in the name, madness happens. We've had some pretty exciting games that had pretty big conference championship implications for the regular season and seeding implications in these conference tournaments. Most notably, Carolina took care of Duke in the season sweep on Saturday. Tennessee lost to Kentucky in a little bit of a surpriser in Knoxville, but we'll get to some of those games in a little bit, as long as you guys allow. So we're going to jump into some previews here for every major conference tournament, and then give us our thoughts here going into Selection Sunday. John Ross, what's going on, man? What are you looking forward to here as we jump fully on into March Madness?
What's up, buddy? I think the upsets, we all know the upsets kind of start in conference tourney time, especially the we won't talk about them really today with the smaller tournaments, mid-major tournaments, but there's some even in the major tournaments. Eager to see. There's always seems to be one team from the major tournament that's on that bubble line that just gets on a hot run and solidifies their bid to the tournament. Eager to see the top seed line. It seems like the three top seeds between Houston, UConn, and Purdue are kind of solidified. Carolina and Tennessee and Arizona, I guess, seem to kind of be vying for that last one seed. So I'm interested to see how that shakes out. But yeah, let's get into it. It's one of my favorite times of year with the tournament about to start. And I'm sure folks in North Carolina, if you didn't know this already, even more exciting for you guys because sports betting is now live.
Yeah, it's not like I've
got North Carolina anymore, and I've gotten an ungodly amount of notifications, emails, texts about it.
FanDuel and BetMGM and DraftKings have just absolutely just assaulted my email inbox with their solicitation on joining. But yeah, I mean it adds a little bit of a wrinkle if you're not a big sports bettor, then now is the time to try it, just for shits and giggles, if nothing else. But big week for the Problem Gambling Helpline. But we'll move past that and move on into our first conference preview here with the Big Ten Conference. As you can see on the TV behind me, the Big Ten bracket is up. I don't know, if you guys can read that. I doubt you can read it, but it looks good. So I think, everybody knows who the favorite is in the Big Ten. They've got a Naismith Player of the Year candidate for whatever reason. I'm not very sure, outside of the fact that he's huge. Zach Edey and Purdue are the odds-on favorite in the Big Ten. Surprised to see Northwestern up there with a double bye in the Big Ten.
Nebraska too.
Yeah, it's not your typical. I think I saw on Twitter the other day, it was like the Big Ten West occupies the top half of the Big Ten basketball standings, and as opposed to the Big Ten East is all towards the bottom of the Big Ten basketball standings, kind of flipped on its head from what you would see in football season. So it's a little bit different, but anything can happen. As we mentioned, it's tournament season.
Michigan.
Last place Michigan, which everybody loves to see, and hopefully the Buckeyes can get hot and kind of win a couple of games and see if they can sneak into the big dance. For Coach Jake Diebler, seems that he's gotten a little bit more out of the Buckeyes than Chris Holtmann was able to this year. But what do you see here? Any teams stick out as sleepers? Anybody that you see that can potentially knock off Purdue in this tournament?
Sleepers, I mean, I'll go with Ohio State. I feel like they've been playing a lot better since Jake Diebler took over. But I just don't see anyone stopping Purdue. Some people have caught Purdue slipping a couple times in the Big Ten. What they have 2 Big Ten losses.
Ohio State being one of them.
Yeah, and then I can't remember who else it was, but
yeah.
I think Nebraska blew them out, actually, now that I think about that. I just don't see it. Illinois, they have a good team. Terrence Shannon Jr. is a really good player, but Indiana, they're not back at all. Nebraska, like I said, surprising year for them in basketball. Northwestern, like you said, another surprising team. Michigan State, I guess you can call it sleeper. Tommy Izzo seems to thrive in March, and Michigan State, I think Michigan State absolutely needs to win the Big Ten tournament to qualify for it, which is kind of a down season for them, especially after being ranked in the top 10 to start the year. But as far as that, I just don't see anyone stopping Purdue in this. The teams I would give a shot to, I'd just because I know more about them than the other two, I'd say out of the top 4 seeds, I'd say Illinois, the 2 seed, I give the best shot to beat Purdue. But outside of that, I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, Wisconsin, I think, is a team that if they were able to make it past, let's see, they play the winner of Rutgers and Maryland in their first game, and then if they win that game, they would move on to face Northwestern. So, I think Wisconsin's a team that if they get hot, they've got some shooters, a couple of bigs that can maybe hang around with Zach Edey, but they've got a couple of guards that can make things happen, and a couple of wings that can do the same thing. So, I think they would be a team that could catch them early, but if not, it would be later in the tournament. I see Illinois down here. Illinois will face the winner of Ohio State and Iowa in the opening round matchup for Ohio State and Iowa in that respective part of the bracket. And then Michigan versus Penn State. Michigan, just a bad basketball team under Juwan Howard, facing a Penn State team who will, in all likelihood, move on to face Indiana. So I think if it's not Wisconsin or Michigan State, then it would be later in the tournament. Purdue seems to be playing at least maybe not its best basketball right now, but they're going into the tournament with that coveted double bye in the Big Ten. So they all signs point ahead to Purdue winning a Big Ten tournament championship here, which who knows if that run propels Zach Edey on to, like I said, a Naismith Player of the Year trophy as well going into that big dance. So could be an exciting tournament there. I mean, a lot of crazy stuff happens in Indianapolis when these teams get together, but a little bit of a down year for the Big Ten, I think, as you mentioned. Tom Izzo and Michigan State not really having the year that they thought coming into it. And then, Ohio State, a team that started 12-2, really found some, all too familiar January struggles in the middle of their season. They were not able to put anything together there to stop Chris Holtmann getting fired mid-season. But they're, winners of, I think, 4 of their last 5. And that includes a win at Michigan State. And so, they're a team that's coming in the tournament hot. And as you mentioned, Illinois is a good team as well. Nebraska can play good basketball. So there's a lot of things that could happen in this tournament. But I think both of us are on the same page there with Purdue.
If Ohio State runs the table and wins the Big Ten tournament, does Jake Diebler have a contract waiting for him as soon as he gets back to Columbus?
It's been a very big topic of conversation. I would like to say yes, because I really appreciate the job that he's been able to come in and do. This is a team that really had no business being in the position that it was in this season. 12-2 was more of what they thought could happen. And then, as again, like the problem seemed to be going into conference play for the last 3 years. Just January struggles every single year, not able to get on the right foot in the Big Ten play, and then it just snowballs. So I think there's part of me that is excited about the potential of a Bruce Pearl coming to Columbus. I saw his name floated around a couple places.
That'd be a big recruiting win right there.
It'd be a big recruiting win. And I saw also Sean Miller's name floated around in their current Xavier head coach. So, I mean, there's part of me that wants an established college basketball coach to come in and take over. Somebody who can, is a proven recruiter, somebody who can take the program to the next level. But if Jake Diebler earns at least a shot at it, then so be it. But it would take a lot, I think, for Jake to be considered for the full-time job. And I think a big-time Big Ten tournament championship run, as well as a, Sweet 16 type of run in the big dance is what that would take. And that's a tall task, seeing as,
He
could
be playing himself
really
into a head coach job at somewhere else, though. We'll see.
Yeah, I think it's an audition for him, more so elsewhere than anything. But shout out to Jake, man. He's really been able to rally the guys and get some, momentum going into this March Madness season. So we'll see what comes of it. But yeah, we'll see. Any final thoughts on the Big Ten, sir?
No, like I said, I just don't see Purdue losing this. It's theirs to lose. And we'll see if they can propel themselves to get farther than the first weekend in the tournament if they win this Big Ten tournament.
Well, they can't hide behind Big Ten officiating in the big dance. Let's just say that. All right. Moving on. The ACC tournament. Let me see if I can get this any bigger. I don't know if I'll be able to. But the ACC tournament held this year in DC, is it? Yep,
Yes.
Washington, D.C.
The last
Um,
last time it won't be in Greensboro or Charlotte until I think 2029, 2030.
which is the way it should be, because nobody in the state of New York or in Washington, D.C. gives a shit about the ACC tournament. And it's kind of sad that they would even move it out of the
Yeah.
Carolinas at all for any reason. But, Atlanta, I could maybe see. I know they've done that before, but other than that, I mean, I just don't. The ACC was born in Greensboro. It should be in Greensboro, regardless of what Jim Boeheim thinks, or Charlotte. Either one of the two, I think, are okay. Um, as we mentioned in the Open, Carolina beat Duke to win the outright ACC regular season championship in a game where Carolina really controlled from start to finish. I mean, I don't know, really what to expect out of the bottom half of the ACC here. The ACC has been, a pretty deep conference all year with a lot of teams that have been pretty good there in the middle. What do you think initially looking at this ACC tournament bracket?
Yeah, the bottom half, the only team that I see that could possibly maybe make a run is Miami. They were ranked pretty high to start the year. Really disappointing season for them. Jim Larinaga is still a great coach. I don't know if Nigel Pack is back for them yet. They're starting guard, shooting guard, point guard. He's one of their better players. They've got some great players in North Shadowmere and Matthew Cleveland. If they get Pack back, I could see them getting hot and going on a run and trying to. They would absolutely have to win the tournament. I think they're like 16 and 15, so they would absolutely have to run the table, win this tournament to get to the big dance. But next tier, I would say probably. I mean, Clemson. Clemson's got some big wins this year, going into Chapel Hill and beating Carolina. They took Duke to the wire in Durham and should have won that game, but that's a topic for controversial call there at the end. But that's a topic for a different time. Syracuse has gotten hot toward the end of the year. They've got some good players over there with Judah Mintz at the guard position. Wake Forest, ever since beating Duke, has kind of played themselves off the bubble. They lost to Georgia Tech. I believe they lost to, I think it's somebody else. I think they lost. I want to say they lost to Notre Dame. They just some bad losses since that, and I think they need to win at least 2 games to even be back on the bubble and even have a hope of making it in. But yeah, after that, I like Pitt, the number 4 seed. Pitt's gotten really hot at the end of the year ever since that win at Cameron, beating Duke there. They're a team I wouldn't want to play right now, a desperate team trying to get in because they're firmly on the bubble. Then you got Virginia, Duke, and Carolina rounding out the top. But yeah, I'd say those are my sleepers. Wake, Syracuse, Miami's a really, really big sleeper. Clemson, and then Pitt. What are your thoughts on those, just as far as sleepers? You think?
Yeah, I mean, I like the way that Clemson plays. I mean, I think, that part of what won them that game in Chapel Hill was their just tenacity on the ball, regardless of if it was the ball coming off the rim, if it was a loose ball, if it was, whatever. I told you, and, jokingly, I said they play a perfect white boy brand of basketball, right? They hustle their asses off to everything. They out rebound you. They'll push you. They'll get under your skin. They shoot the shit out of the ball. And they've got
PJ
2 bigs.
had a really good game, that one.
Yeah. Yeah, and they've got 2 bigs that can, stand down there and beat and bang with anybody in the conference. So I think, Clemson could be a sleeper team, and I think, a team that could maybe make a deep run into the, potentially the championship game or even, the Final Four of the conference. Just looking down here, because I'm unprepared and didn't have anything written down, they would have to, they play the winner of the Boston College Miami in that first opening game, and then they would have to play Virginia if they win that game. So Virginia, not an easy team to beat either.
Don't let them in the tournament.
Yeah. So I think out of any of the the mid-seeded to lower-seeded teams in the ACC tournament, I would look at a team like Wake Forest, potentially a team like Virginia Tech, could, if they get hot against Florida State, but I don't see them being able to beat Carolina. Definitely not NC State. But I would say, and hell, maybe even Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech has 2 wins, big wins over Duke and Carolina, both at home for whatever that's worth. But if Georgia Tech gets hot, I mean, I could see them going, beating Wake Forest and beating Pitt. So, that would be exciting, just to talk about there. But I think, this is going to come down to, I think, the 2 best teams in the conference. And I think those 2 teams are pretty clearly Carolina and Duke. So we may be, in for it to see Carolina Duke Part 3, which would be exciting for everybody. I know, fans always love another chance to get their hands on the rival. So, yeah, I mean, I just don't love anybody that's down there in the middle tier of the ACC to win this thing. I think really your winner is going to come out of the top 3 seeds, I believe. I don't, Pitt I think is hot right now, and they're a team that nobody really wants to face. But when it comes to, playing a Duke or a Carolina or, even a Virginia, should, it end up that way, I don't think that they have enough to win it. So, really, I say all that to say this: it's going to come down to Duke or Carolina, unless Duke slips or something.
My prediction for the championship game is Carolina and Clemson. I think Clemson and Duke will meet in the semis, and I think Clemson will beat them and get them back for that game in Cameron earlier this season. I think Carolina and Pitt will play the other semi, and I think Carolina will have a hell of a time with Pitt. They played them tough in Pitt. That was one of Carolina's first game of the new year in the ACC, and it was a really tough game. Carolina was able to pull away near the end. But, yeah, Carolina hasn't won an ACC tournament, I believe, since 2016, if I'm not mistaken. Wow. 2016 or 2017. Yeah, they don't win the ACC tournament a lot. I give Duke a chance to win it because Duke seems to really get up for this tournament. But yeah, I just like the way Carolina's playing right now, especially if Cormac Ryan keeps shooting like he did against Duke. He's been really streaky all year, but he seemed to find his shot at the perfect time. If Harrison Ingram keeps doing the dirty work, making winning plays, Mondo keeps banging down low and just getting his double-doubles, and RJ, ACC Player of the Year, RJ Davis, heading up to the rafters in the Dean Dome now with that too. If he keeps playing like he's playing, keep being the best player on that team, and the bench keeps contributing. Elliot Cadeau growing up and continuing to play well. Yeah, I just like obviously I'm biased, but I like Carolina to get their first ACC championship in a while. Yeah, I like that, and I'd be lying to you if I said I wouldn't like to see Kyle Tripowski and the Dukies in the championship game again to go 3-0 this year. Chance to go 3-0 this year against them. But
yeah, and I think
let's say I think Clemson's going to go on a run to the championship game.
Yeah, I mean, again, like there's 2 teams I think that are suited to do that, and I think Clemson's one of them just because of the brand of basketball that they play. Tough, hard nose. They hustle to everything, like I said, and they can shoot it, and they've got people to rebound. And I think as big of a part in anything, I think in Carolina's win against Duke was rebounding the ball. And if you can rebound the ball, if you can control possession, and if you can limit turnovers, then that's going to be the secret to success in the tournament. So yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
No, go.
I was going to say, and if you're a fan of torture, if you're into that, you can watch NC State play Louisville in the first round tomorrow. Go to Hell State. Or you can watch Virginia play basketball. Either one of those 2. If you're a fan of torture, be my guest.
Is tomorrow Kevin Keatts' last game as NC State's head coach?
Probably. I hope not. I'd love for him to stay. But that's not up to me. That's up to the somewhat fine folks in Raleigh. Yeah, they suck.
All right.
Yeah.
Moving on to the SEC tournament in Nashville, Tennessee. Isn't it usually in Huntsville or not Huntsville? Is it usually in Huntsville?
Usually it's in Atlanta. A lot of time.
Atlanta. Hmm. I guess the Hawks had something going on.
Yep.
Anyways, I think in terms of the SEC, you've got Tennessee as the 1 seed losing to Kentucky this weekend in a game where they could have won, but they decided to take 1,000,008 threes
Yeah.
in the last 4 minutes of that game, which I
Waste a
thought
40
was
ball from Dalton Connect too.
yeah, which I thought was an interesting choice when you've got Kentucky on the ropes and they gain a little bit of momentum and you don't try to get the ball down lower to the free throw line at all. You just huck up 78 threes in the last 4 minutes to lose that game. But you got Tennessee, Kentucky is the 2, Alabama the 3, Auburn the 4, South Carolina the 5, Florida the 6, and Florida in I want to talk about Florida for a second. A team that was dead in the water like a month ago. And then, they've really caught on and have had some, pretty big wins in the last month or so to put themselves in a pretty good position going into the SEC tournament and put themselves back on the bubble for the big dance too. So you would think a couple wins here if they did win their first game against either Missouri or Georgia. If they win that game, then they move on to play Alabama, and if they beat Alabama, then I would think that is enough to get them into the big dance. So a lot of intrigue here with this one. I think. What do you think about the SEC tournament? I know you mentioned Tennessee and Connect having a big game against Kentucky, and obviously Tennessee's had a pretty good season, positioning themselves as the one in this tournament. But what do you think about the SEC? Do you think Alabama has anything to say about that?
Yeah, Bama's got a very good team. They're really good offensively, not so good defensively. I think that's what's done them in a lot of games this year. Obviously, Tennessee's the favorite. On paper, they have the best team. They have the best player in the league and one of the best players in the country in Dalton Connect. Auburn, they've got a good team. Bruce Pearl they've been a surprise team this year. Janai Broom's a really good player for them. Bruce Pearl's a great coach. Kentucky's won 7 of their last 8. They're clicking at the right time of year. All their freshmen are starting to grow up. Reed Shepherd, a guy who wasn't expected to be that much of a factor this year. He still comes off the bench, but put up 27 against Tennessee. He's a hooper. Yeah, and then you got, like you talked about, Florida. South Carolina's a surprise this year. Lamont Paris, former Chattanooga coach, he's gone there and done really well so far. So I wouldn't be surprised if South Carolina went on a run. Then I don't think they can go on a run, but Arkansas, just a really down year for them. They were a top 15 team to start the year, and now they're hovering at or below 500. So really tough year for Eric Musselman and that team. Ole Miss started the year I've been I want to say 12, 13-0, and season just kind of, they were ranked at one point in season, just kind of fell off the rails. But as far as my pick, I'll go Kentucky. I think they're getting hot at the right time of year. I really, their side of the bracket seems to be a little bit easier. Tennessee has Auburn and South Carolina on their side, and Arkansas, for as far as they get hot, they can be a tough out. But I like, and you mentioned Florida. I think Florida can get past Alabama if they don't get shot out of the gym. Like I said, Alabama is really talented offensively. The thing that may hold me back from picking Tennessee, they're not as good defensively. What?
There's a joke in there somewhere, but we're going to move on.
Oh, I missed it went over my head.
Yeah.
But the thing about Tennessee is they're not as good defensively this year as they have been in the past. And even I think in games where Dalton Connect scores over 35 points, they're 3-2, which is crazy. It really seems like when he's on, he's their off, and he's really not that great of a defender either. So, I mean, it seems like it's just Dalton Connect or bust when he's on like that, and no one else is doing anything. And that was kind of evident against Kentucky. So, yeah, I will take, though, Tennessee and Kentucky round 3 in this SEC championship game, but I like the Cats to win that one again.
Yeah, I like. It is interesting how stand by just real quick. It is interesting to me. I think how Tennessee took the final 5 minutes in that game against Kentucky. That stands out to me. But obviously, I think if you're a basketball coach, you won't let that happen again. And so I think if they do meet again, give me Tennessee learning from their mistakes, and also just because I just despise Coach Cal. So
It
if
would
there's any
basically be a
chance,
home game.
yeah, yeah, honestly.
Well, Lexington's like 2 hours from.
I was about to say it's not that far. It would be in a very electric atmosphere to get both of those fan bases in there at the same time,
Yeah,
in a bit of a neutral setting, if you can even call it that. Um, but yeah, I think Tennessee is poised to make a run here. I think that loss to Kentucky has got them good and pissed off. And if it doesn't, then they could be in for a quick out in this tournament. But a team for me to watch, as I mentioned before, is Florida in the SEC tournament. I think they can make some noise and upset some teams here going into the big dance on their run to make the big dance. So we'll see what happens there. That could be an exciting tournament to watch. And then we'll move on to our next, which is the Big 12 tournament, which, as this graphic looks, is as exciting as the tournament could be. But we'll see. There's usually some fireworks that come with it. I just think that their graphics department could have done a lot better than this. I'm a little bit disappointed. But here, I don't know if there's anybody that can beat Houston. I really don't. I don't, want to bury the lead here, but Houston just blew out Kansas in a way that you talked about
I've
it. I
never
don't think I've
seen.
ever seen Kansas get blown off the floor the way that they did against Houston the other day.
I've never seen Kansas be
And
the 6th seed in the Big 12 tournament.
yeah, I mean, it's crazy that, I mean, I
And they
turned
could
on
be
that
without
game.
Hunter Dickinson too. He dislocated his shoulder in that game.
Ooh,
And
well,
Kevin McCullough, their stud small forward, he's questionable to play too.
yikes.
And
That's
they
not
have
what you
no
want.
bench to begin with. So
Yeah, that's not what you want going into to tournament time. So yeah, I don't see anybody that can beat Houston. I really don't. Um, let's see here. Iowa State is the 2, Baylor is the 3, Texas Tech is the 4. I mean, Texas has, had a couple of big wins. Kansas State has shown that they can play a little bit of basketball. But I mean, as far as the top, half of the Big 12 goes, I just Baylor,
yeah,
maybe. I don't know.
yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I do think Houston's going to win it. They're just suffocating on defense. It's a double whammy when the shots are falling like they were against Kansas. Baylor, if Baylor gets hot shooting the ball, they're really difficult to beat. Iowa State's really good too. And then down there you got Oklahoma. Oklahoma started the year; they were ranked in the top 10 at one point, but their seasons kind of fell off the rails. BYU, they went to Lawrence and beat Kansas a couple weeks ago, so can't sleep on them either. But then after that, the bottom, I mean, the first 2 games, you got Oklahoma State and Central Florida. God, blank there for a second. What does the C stand for? Then you got West Virginia and Cincinnati. Be cool to see Cincinnati make a little bit of a run. Former Tar Heel, former UNCG head coach Wes Miller. They definitely play his brand of basketball, defensive minded. So be cool to see Coach Wes go on a run there. They would play Kansas if they won their first game. But yeah, like you said, I think this one's Houston's to lose. Be interested to see if they kind of coast through this one and have their eyes on a bigger prize, because past few years they've kind of flopped in the tournament. I do think their biggest competition, obviously, the 2 and 3 seed, Iowa State and Baylor, but the Cougs, I just don't see anybody beating them with how suffocating they are on the defensive end.
Yeah, and like you said too, if they're shooting the ball the way they did against Kansas, lights out for the rest of the conference.
The country,
So
maybe too.
yeah. I mean, they're a good team, and they've proven that they can win big games, and this is another stage for them to do the same thing. I don't know if I have any more on the Big 12. If you're good, I'm good.
No, I think this is going to be probably one of the most least entertaining ones, probably.
Yeah. But crazier things have happened. I mean, obviously Bill Self has been there, done that before, so can't really count out Kansas. But as you mentioned, with the history of injury that they have this season and going into the tournament, it's going to be tough sledding for them. But yeah, I mean, I think Baylor could be the only other one, and maybe a Texas Tech, but we'll see. But I think both of us are going Houston on that. Moving on to the Pac-12 in their final college basketball tournament, which is still crazy for me to think about. But
Yeah.
big win for USC beating Arizona the other day, which was huge for USC going into the tournament.
Not
Arizona
good for
still
Arizona's number 1 seed hopes.
Nope. Arizona's still the number 1 seed, followed by Washington State. Colorado and Oregon are the top 4 seeds there. USC secures the 9 seed. Will play Washington in their opening round game. UCLA, the 5 seed, will play Oregon State. California, the 7 seed, will play Stanford. Utah will play Arizona State to round out that field. So I still think, obviously not ideal going into the conference tournament, not ideal for the 1 seed hopes. But I still think that Arizona would be, I think it's, a similar situation to the Big 12. I think this is Arizona's tournament to lose. However, maybe if USC gets them on a rematch, maybe USC can get them again. Who knows? But yeah, I think, I haven't watched much of Colorado. So I'm not going to pretend like I know, a bunch about Colorado. But what do you think here as far as the tournament hopes go for these teams?
Yeah, I do think if USC does play, they would play Arizona if they win their first game against Washington. I do think Zona would beat the hell out of them as payback for that game. But Arizona, man, they've dropped some bad ones this year. USC, they lost to Oregon State at one point. They lost to Stanford. That's the 9, 10, and 12 seeds in the tournament. So Arizona is susceptible to play down to their competition and drop one. Caleb Love, former Tar Heel, had an amazing season for Arizona. I think he's probably going to win Pac-12 Player of the Year, so good for him. But I just think, like I said, Arizona's just the fact that they've dropped games like they have this year. I don't know much about the Pac-12. They play so late. I haven't really watched them this year. I paid attention to Caleb Love just because former Tar Heel. I want to pay attention to him and give him some love. No pun intended. Colorado, I know, does have Cody Williams. He's a projected top 10 pick in the draft, so they could make some noise. But I'm going to keep the Cougar vibe going, and I'm going to pick Washington State. I don't know anything about them, but you know what? Give me the Cougs.
That's what we do on this show. We're bold.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Washington State. Like I said, I just feel like Arizona, they're susceptible to, like they've been all year, susceptible to drop one they're not supposed to, and I think that'll happen. Will it? I don't know if it'll be in the championship game, but I'm going to pick Washington State.
Okay.
Who are you going to pick? Pick some. You picked Arizona, didn't you?
I don't know. Well, I didn't necessarily do that.
Pick somebody
let's
different.
See here. Give me Oregon. Why not?
Quack.
Big Ten, coming to the Big Ten. I like ducks, specifically mallards. Yeah, give me the ducks. I'll roll with
Quack.
it.
Quack.
Quack. Quack, quack. Go crazy, Eugene. You're about to win a Pac-12 tournament championship. Thank me later.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. I don't like Dylan Brooks, though. That guy stinks.
Yeah. I don't think his family even likes him.
Well, it's his problem, not ours. Anyways, moving on to the last tournament that we have here to talk about. Yep, you guessed it. That is the Big East tournament logo. So we're going to talk about the Big East tournament because it's fun and it gives us nostalgia, and the number 1 team in the country is in it. So why wouldn't we talk about it? So
I think this could be one of the more fun ones.
I would agree. UConn, the number 1 seed, the 2 seed Creighton, 3 seed St. John's, which, by the way, it's been fun to see St. John's, good again. And, back to some national relevancy. I know, that's a very historic program. But yeah, good to see them relevant again. The 4 seed Villanova, 5 seed Marquette. So out of those top 5 teams, man, there's a lot of fun basketball between the 5 of those. And then on the bottom half, you have Butler, Providence, Seton Hall, DePaul, Georgetown, and Xavier. what do you think here about, like I said, the top 5 teams? I mean, there's a lot of intrigue there in those top 5. What do you think about, these teams' chances to beat UConn?
I mean, Creighton beat them by 20 plus a few weeks ago, so they definitely stand a chance. And Creighton's gotten hot at the right time of year. They're playing really well, especially Baylor. Shireman, I think his name is, their small forward on that team. He can shoot the lights out. Seton Hall, they've had a good year. They're usually a surprise team every year. Marquette, they've got a great team. They've been in and out of the top 10. I think they've been in the top 10 the majority of the year. Tyler Kowick is one of the best point guards in the country. Villanova, I do think they need to go on somewhat of a run to make the tournament, which is weird to say. Mm-hmm. Other than that, I do think this one is UConn's to lose. In my opinion, UConn is the best team in the country. They're number 1, but they're the most complete team. They return a lot of that national championship team from last year with Tristan Newton. He could get a triple-double at any moment, which is crazy. It's really impressive in the college game. Mm-hmm. Cam Spencer, Alex Caravan, and Donathan Clegane, however you say his name. But yeah, I just think they're the most complete team. So I'll go UConn to win it. But I think their biggest threat, obviously, is Creighton and Marquette. And shout out to St. John's. It would be cool to see them get hot. They would have to go through UConn if they did, provided UConn would beat Butler or Xavier. But they would stand in their way if they wanted to make a run to the championship game. But yeah, I'll take UConn to win it just because they're the most complete team. And Madison Square Garden is basically another home away from home for them. I know one thing. DePaul is not winning anything. They are awful. They stink. But yeah.
Absolute ricochet shot from Max Strus's alma mater. That was rude.
They're awful. They are so bad. But yeah, give me UConn. Would not surprise me though with Creighton being as hot as they are right now to see Creighton run through this and the Blue Jays win the Big East.
I would like to point out that not both of us are going to take ricochet shots at DePaul because they're not even the last seeded team in this tournament.
Yeah, they are.
Xavier is the last seeded 9. Team.
DePaul's 11.
Not on my screen, it's not.
Well, are you sure? That must be a different year.
Well, that's embarrassing if it is, but we're not going to talk about that.
You just inadvertently took a ricochet shot at DePaul.
Hey, DePaul, you suck. I think
demons.
I think this is probably UConn's to lose. I mean, I think, as you said, they're the best team in the tournament, best team in the country, most complete team probably in the country, and defending national champions. So, I mean, provided something crazy happens, whether Creighton gets a hold of them again, a lot of bad blood in that one, in that last game. So, that would be an exciting one to see. And as you mentioned as well, Madison Square Garden, a home away from home, the step back heard around the world a long time ago from Kemba Walker in that building.
Where does that Pitt player still falling down?
He might have fallen all the way to California by now. Who knows? And for those that aren't familiar with the geography of the United States, that's a long way. But yeah, so I think it's UConn's to lose. But again, it's good to see, St. John's relevant again. And as you mentioned, weird to have Villanova kind of on the outside looking into the NCAA tournament. But it is what it is. And we're here to watch it all happen. Any final thoughts here on the Big East tournament or any of the tournaments before we get out of here?
No, not really. Just excited to watch them this week. If you're a high school or middle school, elementary school kid in North Carolina, I'm sure you're excited to have the TV. I don't even know if they wheel a flat screen TV into the classroom now, or is it still the old?
One probably falls out of the ceiling.
Yeah, seriously.
But it could be the big old tube TV on the cart. That was sick.
Nothing like it.
Tournament time is fun, man.
And like I texted you earlier today, if some kid's acting up, just make them watch NC State play basketball. You're gonna catch two. You're gonna catch. That's not a ricochet shot. That is a straight shot.
We'll see if their defensive tackle can score without celebrating.
Big Shirley.
Big Shirley. So, anyways, that is our preview here on High Street Sports of the major conference tournaments. March Madness is here. Sports betting is legal in North Carolina as of today.
If
So
you don't know, now you know.
If FanDuel hasn't sent somebody to your front door,
we don't have
with
referral codes. Sorry,
a tire iron and threats to join or else, now there's still time. The tournament starts tomorrow. Lock in on those promos that are in. I have. You should too. The Problem Gambling Helpline
out there.
is
Let's
available.
have some fun.
Let's live a little, huh? Let's crack a beer this weekend. Let's watch some good basketball, okay? Let's win a few bets. Let's feel good about ourselves, and let's lose it all in the big dance.
Comment an insane parlay for Chris and me to bet on.
Ooh, yes, do that. And we will do it. And we will screenshot and have proof that we did it.
And
don't screw us.
And you will get part of the winnings if it hits.
I like that. Make it the most insane. Let's call it the High Street Sports March Madness, at minimum, 6-leg parlay. At minimum, 6-leg parlay. All right. High Street Sports March Madness, at minimum, 6-leg parlay. Hashtag it. Put it in the comments. We'll choose one of them. We'll do it. And if it wins, then you will get part of the winnings from that bet. So go ahead and make that happen. Cook up something good. We will be back probably at the end of this week with Selection Sunday, March Madness look ahead to the big dance. But until then, my name is Chris. This is John Ross. This has been the first March Madness look ahead show for High Street Sports. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, guys.